How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. If you don't own Bitcoin, you're in a bit of a predicament. If you're not going to add or start buying Bitcoin, your life is probably going to be harder, right? You're not going to be rich as easily. And I say this fully knowing there are people that are rich that don't own Bitcoin, right? There are people that are rich that don't own anything, right? You can just have a killer business and get a bunch of cash, or you can be a trust fund baby, or you can get rich from one specific thing, right? That's always a possibility. But the difficulty is going to be much higher if you don't own Bitcoin from here on out. And I want to explain why that is in today's video. If you like this kind of content, hit subscribe, turn on the bell notification. I've been making videos on Bitcoin for years and years and years throughout the bear market. I've made a ton of videos, even while on vacation here, because the market is so interesting right now. It's such an important time in the market to be paying attention, and I don't want you to miss anything. If you're not someone that's already bought Bitcoin and this video makes you want to start buying Bitcoin, I do have a video talk about whether now is a good time to be buying. And that will give you some specific information that I don't exactly cover in this video, but they're somewhat related. If you don't mind, like I said, hit subscribe. There is a link underneath the video to Margex in case you want to start trading cryptocurrency on leverage. There is that link underneath the video. There's a deposit bonus as well. You can use all different forms of collateral. So I can trade Bitcoin but get paid out in USDC, or I can trade Bitcoin and get paid out in Ethereum, all that kind of stuff, which is pretty cool. There's also a link down there to CoinW. I don't think it's smart to just have one crypto exchange. You should have multiple. If something happens with the exchange, or if it goes down because there's a high amount of volatility in the market, and then too many people log on at the same time, anything can happen. So make sure you spread out your bets, which is why I talk about multiple exchanges. And just know that neither of these have KYC, which is really good in some respects. You don't have to give a bunch of your personal information. There's less on the line if somehow there's a leak. Every single company in the world and governments leak information. But there are also some drawbacks with that as well. So make sure you understand everything before starting to invest. Now, obviously, Bitcoin has done really well over the last few years, and some people understand Bitcoin. A lot of people don't, though. Robert Kiyosaki sums up why he loves Bitcoin here. He says, "I love gold and silver. I own gold and silver mines. The problem is, the higher the prices go, the more gold and silver is found. Same with oil. I own oil wells also. This is not true with Bitcoin." So yeah, that makes sense. Whenever something becomes more valuable, whether it's real estate, a stock, the price of gold, there's more made of it. Like, people say that there's only so much real estate in the world, there's only so much dirt. That's true, but you can also build up. So when Miami became much more popular, a place to live, they built skyscrapers. When a stock goes up 5x or 10x, they raise money, they sell more shares, they dilute the holder. When gold goes up, it becomes more profitable to mine gold. So you can go to areas where maybe there's not quite as much gold, but there's still some gold there, and then it becomes profitable. Bitcoin's not that way. No matter how high the price of Bitcoin goes, there will only be 21 million Bitcoin ever. So a lot of people think there's going to be a massive supply shock, right? Let me shut this a little bit more. A lot of music going on out there. There's only so much Bitcoin, so when so many people want to buy it, that price skyrockets up. And we've seen that with the ETFs recently. There have been a lot of ETFs that have been buying Bitcoin, and that's causing the price to go up. We're at 68,000 now. We were up at 73, 74,000. But if you scroll out and look when the Bitcoin ETFs were approved, we were at like 48, we dropped down to 40, and then we've just been straight up. Now, why do I say that it's going to become really difficult to get rich if you don't own Bitcoin? A couple of reasons. First of all, take a look at this. Bitcoin purchasing power. A house in 2016, the average house in the US cost $288,000, then $329,000 in 2020. So like a significant rise, 15-20% rise. And then it went up another 25% from 2020 to 2024. Just insane, right? This is a 50% increase from 2016 to 2024. And people that owned real estate probably feel really wealthy. Like if you had rental properties and you had, let's say, 5 or 10 rentals, well, your equity just went up significantly. If you had 10 rentals, you gained $1.5 million in net worth. Now, real estate is a good way of storing value. I've heard some people talk about it as storing your value in square feet. But a lot of people want real estate. A lot of people have bought real estate, and it's just I'd say it's still a great business because of the tax incentives. But when you look at how much liquidity goes up in the U.S. and how much the money supply goes up with inflation, a lot of people don't take that into account. Yeah, you're outperforming something like the stock market, and the stock market is outperforming something like bonds, and bonds are outperforming stuff like just cash. But then look at Bitcoin. In 2016, it cost 664 Bitcoin to buy this $288,000 property. Then the price in US dollars went up 15, 20%. But it costs 10 times less Bitcoin. Or, you have to pay less than 10% as much Bitcoin. And then 4 years later, you have to pay significantly less Bitcoin again. 6 Bitcoin in 2024 versus 600. So the value of real estate versus Bitcoin has gone down 99% in the last 8 years. And that's just crazy to think about, right? You could have bought a house in cash, or you could have bought 664 Bitcoin. Now you could buy 100 times more houses, even with the value of houses going up. Now, why do I say, though, that it's going to be hard getting rich if you don't own Bitcoin? Well, there are a lot of people that own Bitcoin right now. From what we can tell, it's probably, there are about 1 million wallets with 1 Bitcoin or more, which some people have multiple wallets. I'm guessing it's closer to maybe 750,000 people that own a full Bitcoin. I'd say 500,000, but some people keep them on exchanges. So I'd say there's probably 750,000 people that own a full Bitcoin. Now, a lot of people own Bitcoin miners, or they own MicroStrategy, or they own Bitcoin ETF. So let's say that's another 250,000. There are 1 million people that own a full Bitcoin. Now, what happens when Bitcoin's price goes up to $250,000, $300,000? Well, a lot of people would say that's probably pretty likely to happen, right? Or at least not unlikely. This is what we've seen in the past, and we see a lot of volatility with liquidity increasing, with the halving coming up, with historical returns. It would make sense to be 200, 300,000, something like that. At that point, you're going to have 1 million people that have $200,000 to $300,000 in an asset that's very liquid. It's not like real estate or a car or something where it's hard to sell. Now, if people want to sell their full Bitcoin, they can take that money and they can go somewhere else. Also, a lot of people have it in something like an ETF now, where they can get loans against it. Not everyone's going to do that, but think about that. There are going to be 1 million people that have this great store of wealth, maybe $200,000, $300,000 worth. What happens when 1 million people get significantly wealthy? They go buy stuff, right? They buy stocks, they buy real estate, they buy watches, they buy cars, and it becomes a little bit expensive to live if you're not one of those people, right? If you want that same nice car, well, Joe Sixpack that bought 2 Bitcoin, I shouldn't say Joe Sixpack, the smart investor that bought 2 Bitcoin, he doesn't care if the car's a little bit overpriced. He might buy it anyways. He might go buy a couple rental properties, and he might bid up the price a little bit. You have 1 million people that now have extra wealth. Now, some people would say that's not going to happen, right? That doesn't happen where people, like 1 million people isn't going to make a big difference, right? I think that's wrong. There are people that own 10,000 Bitcoin, 100 Bitcoin, 1,000 Bitcoin, and they're definitely going to take some profits and go reinvest in other areas. They're not going to sit on cash for years. Now, maybe they sit for a year in the bear market to buy, again, the Bitcoin dip if we have one. But there are going to be a lot of people that try to reinvest their wealth somewhere else, right? They just want maybe a 30% allocation to Bitcoin, a 10%, and they want to keep it there, but they're willing to wait a little bit, so it might get oversized. It might be 50% of their portfolio, but then they sell and then reinvest in other areas. And the Fed actively tries to stop this. When inflation goes up, they try to kind of push down the stock market. Like, yes, they say that they're going to keep rates higher for longer, partly because they're actually going to do it, but partly because they want to speak hawkish, because they don't want people to feel really wealthy. If the stock market goes up 30%, 40% in a year, people start to feel wealthy. They start spending more, right? They cause inflation to go up. The Fed actively tries to stop that because they don't want inflation to go too high. But when the Bitcoin ETFs come in, And when Bitcoin starts racing up, there's not really much they can do. Sure, they could raise rates more, but they're not raising rates just because Bitcoin goes up, right? They're looking at inflation, but that does cause assets to increase in price. We've seen that in the past where a group of people become very wealthy and then they start bidding up assets. It's harder to buy assets that you might want. And if you don't hold any Bitcoin right now, if you're under allocated, you're not going to have that same increase in wealth. I mean, look at what you could have done if you had bought Bitcoin a year ago or 5 years ago. Pretty much any time besides the peak of the last bull market, you're probably outperforming just about everything else, unless you nitpick and say, well, I would have bought Nvidia with my holdings or something. No, I mean, Bitcoin is up in the last year, a couple 100%. In the last 30 days, it's up 32%. It's outperforming everything over the last 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. Pretty much anything but the last peak, you're outperforming every other asset. It's making people a lot wealthier. But at the same time, when one group of people becomes wealthier, everyone else essentially becomes less wealthy in respect to the wealthy group. And they get bidded out of assets, right? Also, if you just want to take that 1% chance that Bitcoin's the new money, I mean, we are already seeing some countries like China, Russia, South Africa say that they're going to start transacting with crypto and bypassing the US dollar. If this really is the new money, whether it really is that new money or whether people just invest in it through retirement accounts and they put 5%, 10% in a retirement account and then ride it for 30 years and then we're at $1 million, $2 million, $5 million. Those are the people that you're going to be fighting against to buy assets. So yeah, if you don't have some Bitcoin and you're bullish on it, or even if you're just like, I don't know about it, do some research, right? Try to get an allocation if you feel comfortable with it. There's going to be a lot of volatility. You have to be ready for that. If you're not ready for that, then Bitcoin's probably not for you. But if you can handle that and you understand Bitcoin, well, you're probably going to make a lot more money in Bitcoin even if you just hold, even if you don't time the market perfectly. If you just buy or dollar cost average and hold, you're probably going to make a lot more money than investing in treasuries, dividend stocks, growth stocks. You'll probably make more money in Bitcoin because there's just more adoption. There are more people that are starting to buy that haven't had access to in the past, and that causes the price to go up. I've helped family members, friends of family buy Bitcoin recently. I wish I could help more people. I wish they could understand it better. But some people just aren't in the right spot to start even thinking about asset accumulation yet. So do your best to try to learn a little bit more. If you're already buying Bitcoin, congrats, because it's probably going to be easier for you to start businesses, to buy assets in the future than other people, because you have this extra growth lever, this extra capital that you'll have from investing in Bitcoin. I appreciate you guys watching. Thank you so much. Again, you can check out the links to Margex and CoinW underneath the video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.